The music stopped for a moment in Alina Voss's ears as she saw the man she had been hunting for 2 years. He stood near the window, laughing with people who had no idea what he really was. Alina's heart pounded so hard she thought someone might hear it over the orchestra. She was not supposed to be at this event. Her name was not even on the guest list. She had borrowed another woman's invitation and slipped past security using a smile and a stolen pair of earrings. Her real mission was hidden inside a small flash drive tucked into her glove, holding proof that could expose a shipping company used to move people against their will. Her younger sister, Grace, had disappeared into that world 2 years ago, and Alina had never stopped searching for the people responsible. As she moved closer to get a photograph of the man's face, a security guard turned toward her and started walking in her direction. Alina's mind raced. If she was caught now, everything she had worked for would be gone in seconds. She needed to disappear into the crowd, but there was nowhere to hide. Then she saw him. A tall man in a dark suit stood only a few steps away, watching the room with quiet control. She did not know his name. She did not know what he did. She only knew she had seconds to make a choice. Alina walked straight up to him, slipped her arm through his, and leaned close enough that her voice would only reach him. "Pretend you know me," she whispered, her breath shaking. For a moment he said nothing. His eyes studied her face the way someone studies a puzzle they are not used to solving quickly. Then, instead of pulling away or calling for help, he placed his hand gently over hers and turned toward the approaching guard with an easy, practiced smile. "There you are," he said smoothly, as if they had been together all evening. The guard slowed, glanced between them, and then nodded and walked past without another word. Alina let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. She tried to pull her arm free once the danger passed, but the man held on just long enough to make it clear the moment was not over. "You are not very good at lying," he said quietly, "but you are very good at surviving." Alina's eyes narrowed. She had no idea who he was, but something in his voice told her he was not just another guest at this party. He guided her toward the exit, away from the noise and the lights, his grip calm but firm. Outside, the cold night air hit her face, and for the first time all evening, Alina felt truly afraid. Not because of what she had done, but because of the way this stranger looked at her, as if he already knew exactly who she was and why she had come. "My name is Dante Marchetti," he said, watching her reaction closely. Alina's stomach dropped. Everyone in the city knew that name. He was not just another wealthy guest at a charity event. He controlled one of the most powerful and feared organizations in the region. She had heard stories about him for years, though she had never expected to be standing this close to him, let alone owing him a favor. "You already know why I was in there," she said carefully, choosing her words as if each one might set off an alarm. Dante did not deny it. Instead, he told her something she never expected. He had been watching the same shipping company for months, following his own trail of missing records and broken promises. His reasons were different from hers, tied to something from his past that he refused to explain fully, but their goal was the same. They both wanted the people behind that company exposed and stopped. Alina crossed her arms, unwilling to trust him so easily. "Why would someone like you need my help?" she asked. Dante's expression stayed calm, but his eyes carried something heavier than confidence. He explained that she had something his people did not have, a connection inside the company, someone who trusted her enough to talk. Alina thought of Marco, an old friend of her sister's who now worked as a low-level clerk for the shipping company, unaware of how deep the corruption ran above him. Dante offered her a deal: his resources, his protection, and his network in exchange for the information she could gather. Alina hesitated. Getting involved with a man like him meant stepping into a world she had spent her whole life trying to stay away from. But she also knew that without serious help, she would never get close enough to the people who took her sister. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "how do I know you will not use me and then walk away?" Dante studied her for a long moment before answering. "Because unlike them, I keep my word." His voice held no warmth, but there was something steady in it that made her believe him, even if she did not want to. Over the following days, Alina found herself pulled deeper into his world. She met with Marco secretly, gathering documents and shipment routes while Dante's people worked from the shadows, tracing money in hidden warehouses. Slowly, pieces of a much larger picture began to form, one involving powerful names that reached far beyond a single shipping company. Alina realized this was no longer just about finding her sister. It was about stopping something far bigger than she had ever imagined. And Dante Marchetti, a man she never intended to trust, had become her only way forward. 3 weeks into their partnership, Alina noticed something changing between them that she had not expected. Late one night, while reviewing shipment records in a quiet office above one of Dante's businesses, she asked him directly why he cared so much about stopping the trafficking network. For the first time since she had met him, he looked away instead of answering right away. He finally told her about a woman named Nora, someone he had loved years ago who had vanished under circumstances he still did not fully understand. He believed the same people responsible for his sister's disappearance were connected to the very network Alina was chasing. It was the first time he had shared something so personal, and Alina realized his calm exterior hid a pain that matched her own. Their growing trust did not go unnoticed. Dante's second-in-command, a sharp and suspicious man named Victor, began questioning why an outsider was being given so much access to sensitive information. Victor believed Alina could not be trusted, especially after a shipment of documents they were tracking mysteriously went missing before reaching its destination. Dante defended her without hesitation, but the tension inside his organization grew thicker with each passing day. Then came the moment that changed everything. During a private meeting meant only for Dante's most loyal members, sensitive details about their investigation were leaked to their enemies. Someone inside the organization was passing information to the very people they were trying to expose. Suspicion immediately turned toward Alina, since she was the newest person with access to their plans. Victor argued strongly that she should be removed from the operation entirely, insisting her involvement had brought unnecessary risk into their world. Dante stood firmly against him. In front of his own men, he made it clear that he trusted Alina completely, a decision that cost him respect among some of his closest allies. That night, alone with her, he admitted the truth. Trusting her had already changed things for him in ways he had not expected, and he was not willing to abandon that now, regardless of the consequences within his own circle. Alina, moved by his loyalty, began to see him differently. He was no longer just a powerful stranger she had used out of desperation. He had become someone she genuinely relied on, someone whose presence made the danger surrounding her feel slightly less overwhelming. But even as their bond grew stronger, the real threat remained hidden, watching quietly from within, waiting for the right moment to strike at the one person Dante could not afford to lose. The call came late at night, and Alina's world stopped the moment she heard the voice on the other end. It was Grace, her sister, alive and speaking in a trembling whisper before the line went dead. Alina's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the phone. Somehow, the people behind the shipping company had discovered her connection to Grace, and now they were using her sister as leverage to draw Alina out into the open. A message arrived shortly after, giving Alina instructions to come alone to an old storage facility outside the city if she wanted to see her sister again. Every instinct told her this was a trap, and Dante insisted just as strongly that she could not go without him. But the message was clear. If anyone followed, Grace would disappear again, this time for good. Against Dante's wishes, Alina agreed to meet the terms, believing she had no other choice. What she did not know was that Dante had no intention of truly letting her walk in there without protection. While Alina made her way toward the facility, he quietly mobilized his most trusted people, keeping enough distance to avoid detection while staying close enough to react the moment something went wrong. Victor, despite his earlier doubts about Alina, proved his loyalty that night, helping track the exact location where she was being led. Inside the facility, Alina found Grace locked inside a small room, frightened but unharmed. Before she could reach her, a man stepped out from the shadows, someone she immediately recognized as one of the company's top managers, the same person she had seen laughing at the gala weeks earlier. He revealed, almost proudly, that he had known about Alina's plan from the very beginning, thanks to information passed along by someone close to Dante. It was in that moment that the identity of the informer became clear, a junior member of Dante's team who had been quietly selling secrets out of fear rather than greed. Just as the manager moved to trap both sisters inside the facility, Dante and his people arrived, moving quickly and decisively through the building. The confrontation that followed was tense and chaotic, filled with shouting voices and the sound of doors slamming as guards tried to secure every exit. Alina grabbed Grace's hand and pulled her toward safety, while Dante confronted the manager directly, refusing to let him escape with the truth still hidden. In the end, authorities alerted earlier by Dante's contacts arrived just in time, surrounding the facility and taking the manager and his men into custody before real harm could be done. Alina held her sister close, tears streaming down both their faces, relief finally washing away months of fear. Dante stood nearby, watching quietly, knowing that the danger was finally over, but understanding that everything between him and Alina had changed forever because of that night. In the weeks that followed, the shipping company collapsed entirely under the weight of the evidence Alina and Dante had gathered together. Investigators uncovered records connecting powerful figures across the city to the network responsible for taking Grace and countless others. One by one, those involved were exposed, arrested, or forced to answer for what they had done. For the first time in years, Alina felt something close to peace, knowing that her sister's suffering had finally led to real justice rather than more silence. Grace slowly began to heal, surrounded by the safety and support she had been denied for so long. Alina stayed close to her during those early weeks, rebuilding a bond that had been stretched thin by fear and distance. Yet even as she focused on her sister, thoughts of Dante lingered in the back of her mind. Their partnership had started out of necessity, but somewhere between stolen documents and late-night conversations, it had grown into something neither of them had expected. Inside his own world, Dante faced consequences of his own. His decision to trust an outsider and to defy members of his inner circle for her sake had shaken the loyalty of some who once followed him without question. Victor, however, stood firmly by his side, having seen firsthand the strength of character both Dante and Alina carried through the entire ordeal. Slowly, Dante began restructuring his organization, choosing loyalty built on trust rather than fear, inspired in part by what he had witnessed in Alina's determination to protect the people she loved. Months passed before their paths crossed again in a setting far different from where it all began. Another charity event filled the same grand hall, the same soft music playing in the background, but this time Alina walked in under her own name, with nothing to hide and nothing to steal. She spotted Dante across the room almost immediately, dressed sharply as always, his eyes finding hers just as quickly. There was no need for whispered lies this time, no stolen earrings or borrowed identities standing between them. Alina crossed the room with steady steps, stopping directly in front of him. She smiled, remembering the desperate moment that had first brought them together. "No pretending this time," she said softly, echoing the words that had once saved her life. Dante's expression softened into something rare for a man of his position, a genuine, unguarded smile. He offered his hand, not out of necessity or strategy but out of choice. Alina took it without hesitation, and together they stepped further into the room, no longer strangers playing a dangerous game, but two people who had faced real danger together and come out stronger because of it. Behind them, the life they had once feared losing continued on, safer now, and finally free from the shadows that had once controlled it.